Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. So I just made a Virgin versus Chad meme, and I'm entirely too proud of this. And as I was making this meme, I think I made this meme instead of making a video where I would talk about all of these points, for 20 minutes or something. But then after I finished it, I thought, well, this is interesting. The meme kind of makes my point for me, but something clicked for me, and that is that in the manga industry, like Boku no Hero Academia, minor, secondary, or even tertiary characters have more charm, personality, and appeal than flagship characters in contemporary Marvel Comics. Now, if you do not know what the Virgin versus Chad meme is, I congratulate you for staying away from the cesspool of social media, but pretty much the gag is that there's this goofy looking virgin and this goofy looking alpha male, and then the notes compare the two and why the virgin is so meek and will never get a girlfriend, and the Chad is so awesome and self-confident. And you're not supposed to explain the joke, but the joke is essentially that they're going over the top in these descriptions. And I love the Virgin versus Chad meme. The drawings are so goofy. It's the perfect bad art picture where you just look at the drawing and laugh. And I think this is only the second Virgin versus Chad meme I've ever done. The first one was of me and Diversity in Comics, where I cast myself as the meek and skinny looking virgin, and Diversity in Comics as the muscular and confident looking Chad. And this one features Kamala Khan, the Marvel Comics young teenage girl superhero character, and Itsuka Kendo. And I didn't even know Itsuka Kendo's name after reading and watching My Hero Academia. I wouldn't be surprised if you just sort of vaguely recognized her as that redheaded girl with big hands. So I didn't even remember that her superhero name was Battle Hands. Yet, Itsuka Kendo managed to make a really strong, cool impression on me. And what this has gotten me to think about, again, is distinctions between the Western comic industry for superhero comics and the manga comic industry. And I love Western comics. I love Western superhero comics. If you only read manga and watch anime, I would strongly encourage you to look into the history of Western comics, because I think you'll see the influence of Western comics on your favorite manga artists. And I think people who are exclusively fans of the Western comics market really need to pay attention to what's going on in the manga industry. They are different, but there's also overlap in the appeal of both, and it just makes for some really great compare-contrasts between the two industries. So one of the things that the Western comic market has that I wish the manga industry would have is the Western superhero comic industry develops tons of characters. Now, this is a strength and a weakness, because then lame characters will get their own series and they'll stretch that on and the series won't do well. But I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential in a lot of the great characters created by manga. They appear in one series created by a author, artist, and a team of studio assistants. The series ends, and maybe they'll do a sequel series. If it's really popular, maybe they'll do a spin-off, but they don't really do this sort of issue thing, focusing on one character or mini stories from a universe. Manga stories seem to have like a really tight beginning, middle, and end, at least in the Shonen Jump market. But the obvious strength that manga has, I think, that the Western comic market doesn't, is that because there's this sort of single focus in all of these manga stories, you can just tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and end. We're not going backwards and forwards and upside down in time and murdering and resurrecting people, except for Dragon Ball Z, and even there it's kind of treated as a joke. But I just think that we need a little bit more of the individualistic flair that the manga industry has in the Western comics market. We need a little bit more of that nod and a wink, this is a fantasy for young people appeal, this popular appeal that the manga industry has, that the Western comics market is starting to leave behind in the name of politics. So what we're looking at is Kamala Khan and Itsuka Kendo, both characters, young female characters, who can make their hands big. So that's just the superficial similarity that made me think of making this meme. And the second I thought of it, it's like the entire meme popped into my head. And so I wrote down all of these little individual points for why Kamala Khan is a weak character. I'm tired of her. And Itsuka Kendo is a really interesting character, even though she barely shows up at all. She's not even like in the main character's classroom. She's in the other classroom, and you might see her once in a while for a little gag. But every time you see Itsuka Kendo, she makes a strong impression. And her leadership style is different than Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan has kind of taken on this Hillary Clinton, bossy, nasty woman approach to bossing around the men and taking charge, and just never comes off as someone admirable, someone I'd want to work under. The idea of the champions team isn't that heroic or worthy of admiration. It's worthy of it. It's admirable only if you have like a certain type of young, naive leftist politics. In contrast to that, Itsuka Kendo lives in this universe of hyper overachievers where every character, including the main character, wants to be the best, strives to be successful, has this strong sense of honor. So it's like character after character after character has these great moral traits. And then what separates the protagonist from the secondary character is he is that to the nth degree. He is heroic to the nth degree. He is honorable to the maximum. And it's just a world shift. It's a world shift. So if you're not familiar, Kamala Khan had this storyline where she's following around Miss Marvel, not Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel's orders. And Kamala Khan starts throwing citizens in jail on orders from Captain Marvel without a trial. This is ridiculous. This isn't heroic. And just because Kamala Khan bellyaches about it a bit and feels a little guilty about it, that doesn't undo what she does. In contrast to that, Itsuka Kendo lives in this world where the rules of what a hero does are governed by law, effectively. And she has so much respect for her teachers, and she has so much respect for the rules that she's not willing to break the rules of superheroics, even if it puts herself in danger. But she's not just blindly following her pop idol into beating up innocent people and throwing them in jail. Itsuka Kendo leads her team with this sort of charming big sister attitude. She leads by example, by being a good person, and she is voted the representative of her class in a meritocratic system. Now, the whole point here is that Itsuka Kendo is a character you could almost miss if you blinked while watching My Hero Academia. She barely shows up, but when she does show up, she does something interesting. She does something admirable. She does something that makes me want to see, maybe she could get her own little spin-off series. That's the thing is, sometimes they'll have polls for popularity in Japanese manga, and some side character will be wildly popular for a while, and that might be the best luck for any of these characters ever to be developed. Now maybe they would do a series about Itsuka Kendo, and it wouldn't be that strong. Maybe she's the type of character who is best in strong doses, but she's not strong enough to hold her own series or be the star of her own show. But my point is that the manga industry has so much of what the American comic market is lacking that even forgettable little characters from a good manga story will hands down beat the shoved down our throats. I don't hate diversity. I love diversity in comics, but the problem with Kamala Khan is that it's just so forced and it's so awkward. Who is this person? What does she want? What makes her a hero? What makes her tick? And a while ago, Comic Drake did a video. He also goes by Trailer Drake. He did a video on why he thinks Kamala Khan is great and Miles Morales is great, but Riri Williams isn't that great. And something he said is, for you to have an opinion of Kamala Khan, it's required that you read almost everything about Kamala Khan. And I thought about that for a little bit. Gee, should I read every Kamala Khan comic before I have a positive or negative opinion of the character? And my conclusion is I should read all of the Miss Marvel comics if I want to critique the Miss Marvel comics, tear them apart, every little detail and explain why they work or don't work. But I do not need to read 100 comics and pay money to read Miss Marvel comics to know that the character of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, is not an interesting or admirable hero character. It connects it with her visual design. It connects with how she uses her powers, how she behaves, how she talks, what her personality is, the moral activity and immoral actions that Miss Marvel takes. She's just uninteresting. Itsuka Kendo, even though she's a completely minor character, would be more in if the Japanese market, we're imagining if the Japanese manga market was more like the American comics market, and I could go pick up an Itsuka Kendo comic series based on her appearances in the regular story, I would go pick up an Itsuka Kendo story quite quickly because you can just see the reasons in my meme. So I guess to save time, read the meme, and if you are into Western comics, what do you like about them that manga doesn't have? If you're into manga and not Western comics, what has led you to manga and led you away from Western comics? If you read both, what are your thoughts on the comparative strengths and weaknesses of the two? Would you read a comic series about Itsuka Kendo, or am I stretching a little bit here in this meme? Also, I want to give a big, huge thank you to my first 3 patrons on Patreon. I've reached out to all of them, asking if it's okay for me to just name them as I thank them on this channel. My first patron I want to thank is Avid Comic Reader. He and I have talked on Twitter for a while, just about as long as Comicsgate's been going on. He shared a lot of great, interesting stuff with me. He finds a lot of interesting things, so I really appreciate it. And there have been a lot of leads behind the scenes of videos and information I've gotten that Avid Comic Reader has pointed me towards. I also want to thank Greg Has a Mic. He has a YouTube channel, and I will be linking it in the description. And I also want to thank my boy Leo Convoy. Leo Convoy helped introduce me to some of the things about Thundercats that I just didn't know after I made my 2 Thundercats videos, and it's thanks to him that I'm going to be able to do more Thundercats videos in the future, because he's pretty much helped me understand the fandom a little bit better. So the 3 of you, it just blows my mind that someone would appreciate the content I'm doing on this channel enough to support me, and all 3 of them are going to be getting cute chibi drawings, and I can't wait to do those. So I love all of my subscribers. I love you guys. I love my patrons. Wouldn't be a #1 Marmaduke show if I didn't mess something up. But I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.